hello there, it's Pip here from queenpipcards.com. Welcome to my Christmas stamper stack. Today we are going to be covering the 3 cards that made up the Christmas stamper stack, and you have all 3 of them in your online class in a box. You should have received by now all of the bits and pieces, and these are the 3 cards that we're going to be making. So let's get started. First of all, you should have in your packet the Carols of Christmas stamp set. Everybody should have this one. This was part of the stamp stack single normal price, as it were, and then you could bundle up and purchase the card front builder thinlit dies as well, and then you could bundle completely and go and get the 3 ink pads that we will be using today, which are Crumb Cake, Cherry Cobbler and Garden Green. So hopefully you have all of that in your packet. You do need to have a few supplies at home. Obviously you need to have your adhesives. You also need to have 3 daubers. You don't have to have 3 daubers, you can do it just with 2 colours if you wish, or just with a bit of using your ink pads when we get to this card. But if you do have daubers, then you can get, if we can see this, see I've got 2 colours, and then the Crumb Cake in the middle kind of merges the 2 together. But if you don't have daubers, that's not a big issue. Right, okay then, so if you didn't get the dies, don't panic. Yes, there is a little bit of cutting to be done, but I have done your trees for you, so they should be in your pack. Those of you who received the dies in your bundle, I thought you would like to do the cutting, so I didn't do your tree cutting for you. I have done everything else. The only other thing we need is a sentiment to go on here. If you can see here, this says Merry Wishes. There's not a small sentiment in this large stamp set, and I did feel it needed a little bit of a sentiment there, so you could just grab any sentiment that you had. Happy Christmas, Merry Christmas, best wishes, you know, happy holidays, whatever you've got. This one comes from the Oh What Fun stamp set, which is still available, so, and I know that quite a few of you have got that stamp set from last year, so I thought, do you know what, let's use that one. Okay, so let's crack on with our first card. So I think first of all we'll do this one, because then I can show you the daubers. Now I won't be doing any of the cutting out today, so that we don't get the big shot on screen and we don't get all that shaking going on when I cut it. So I used this size block. This is a D size block to fit the stamps on. So you can see they fit nicely on there. And in your packet you will have received, just get these out, 1 stitched circle framelit, some trees if you didn't get the dies, some papers, oh, there's the other tree, and a piece of gold glimmer paper. Now I have cheated, as I said, because I am going to do the deer, and I pre-cut my deer because I don't want the big shot on screen. So the way that I put this card together is, let's pop those over there for a minute, I don't get them daubed, is you need your 3 ink pads. You need to remember which one is which if you're daubing, because they all look a bit the same, although thankfully mine have got inky over the time, so I can tell which one's Cherry Cobbler. And then you take your dauber, and I always start with the lightest one, so I start with Crumb Cake, and I'm just going to dab in my Crumb Cake pad and just do that across the middle, because I only really want Crumb Cake across the middle. Now if you didn't have a dauber, what you can do at this point is you can just ink it up in Crumb Cake and then daub over the top, or ink over the top by just placing your stamp, you know, in the ink pad wherever you want it to be. You can do that, works fine, so don't be afraid to do that, because the Crumb Cake is so light it won't show up on these colours. Then we did the piece in Garden Green. You see that coming across, just coming over the letters there, and it doesn't really matter if you go over a little bit. The whole point is that it's a kind of a variated, graduated ombre kind of look. Okay, so there's the green. Just make sure that you have covered everything. There we go. And then the cherry cobbler goes on the earth at the bottom. And you know, daubing does take a little bit longer to do. If you have the right markers, you can do this as well, but you'll get a more solid effect. I quite like daubing on rubber stamps, especially. They stay wet quite a long time. Okay, so when you make sure that you've got your all of that inked up, I'm just going to close my pads before I get my arms in it. Okay. And then because it's a circle, I just huffed on that, that's a technical term, but because it's a circle it doesn't matter which way round you go because it's always going to be straight at one point. So then just align it and pop that down. Give it a good bit of pressure, not too much but enough so that you know you've got a good impression. There you go. So there's, it just fits on. Notice it's just on the corners. This one's just slightly off, but it doesn't matter. And that's got the whole ombre look going on there quite nicely. So that's the big piece of your show, as it were, on your card. Next you will need your card base, and I went for the thick Whisper White for this card base. It's a lovely strength. If you prefer, you can score it first, but you don't have to. It does fold, especially if you use a good burnish on a bowl from your bone folder. So get your card base, make sure it's the right way up, and then I use fast fuse, as you know, for most of what I do. And then make sure your trees are the right way up too, and then just position that. And I did it with a little bit of a gap all the way around. Make sure that's straight. Lovely. And again, fast fuse works brilliantly for your glitter. Now on this one it's going to go edge to edge, so that's cool, but I put my trees down first, so I just want to make sure that they are going to fit first. So you're going to position your trees where you want them, and then just make sure that that is going to cover them. Yeah, okay. Now for the trees I would use multi-purpose glue, purely because, I mean, you can use fast fuse just a little bit down the side, but you really do want to get it up the top here. So just a tiny smidge, that is literally all you need. People always hate multi-purpose glue or Tombow because they put too much glue on, and then it squidges out the side and it makes a right mess. And then they go, oh, I hate this glue, but it's not the glue, it's just the amount that you're using. You don't actually need that much. It's a really, really strong glue, and will hold just like that. So just be aware that you don't need tons of it. You have to be a bit careful because it can come out quite fast sometimes and stick to things. So just gently. This one I did a bit higher because you've got the piece to come across the top, so that's going to hide things. So we did that, and then fast fuse all the way down, because it's this backing to the glimmer paper, it needs a stronger adhesive. Tear and tape would work just as well. And then you're going to just pop that. Oh, I did that tree just a little bit too high. Never mind, we can hide that with a deer. There we go. Now if this is, come on, ease it. See, I do those things too. Just want to make sure it's going to cover my trees. That's the bit. So now I have done these. Some of these are slightly too long, because I'd just rather they were over your card base than under your card base, because there's nothing worse. So you just need to just trim that a little bit off, and I use scissors for that. And I now realise I should have put my glasses on this morning. That would have been helpful. I'll do that in a second. Okay, so there's my gold. Then my deer is going to go here, Yeah, and I did do those trees just a smidge too high, but that's okay because my piece on earth is also going to come along here. So that's going to hide quite a lot of that as well. So we'll just have a little bit of my tree underneath showing. And if you wanted to, you could heat it up and then rearrange it and move it, but you know what? I'm not going to bother. So just make sure that you've got that a little bit lower than I have on this one. You could turn it round and you could put the deer over here, but then this tree would be hanging off on its own, so that's not so good either. So now I'm going to go with it, and I'm just going to put my deer maybe going over or maybe going under a little bit like that. So next thing you want to do is attach your deer, and for the deer I love these new mini dimensionals. Can you see these? They're so tiny, but very sticky. So obviously you would stamp the deer in crumb cake and then cut that out. Now, if you're doing this by hand, you might just want to pay attention to the legs and make sure that you don't take the legs off. Otherwise it would be a legless deer, and that's not a good look. And these little dimensionals, you may need to just trim, even on these, because they're so tiny, you might just need to trim a little bit. But that's all. And then pop him down. Now he needs to stick really on the green stuff or the white stuff. He's not going to stick on the glimmer, so we'll pop him down there so that he sticks there. And then on the large piece, I would use my normal size dimensionals, because you don't want to be using all those little ones, drive you nuts. So going all the way around on that. And again, you don't really want to be gluing over this thing, a piece of glimmer paper here, so you want to make sure that when that goes on, you're missing the on bit. So top, so for this one normally I'd say top, sides and in the middle, but this one we don't want to do in the middle because the glimmer is going to be there. And that's a thicker, which means that it will raise your piece up in the middle, but also it doesn't stick as well. So just make sure that we cover up that little piece of white that I've inadvertently left. Oops, there we go. There. So that's your first one done. Get rid of your dimensional pieces, backing pieces. These get everywhere, absolutely everywhere. Oh, and they bounce, but there we go. Let's move those on. Okay, so original. Yeah, my deer's a little bit too close, but you know, that happens. It's live. I recorded it. Well, it's not really live, but you know what I mean. The pressure of doing it on video.